This moment. Good evening, Rachel.
Good evening, Chris. Thank you very much.
You bet.
And thanks you at home for joining us this hour. It was 40 years ago, 1974. It was February 17th, 1974, and the White House was dark. This was the depths of the energy crisis, so they dialed it back on the architectural lighting on the White House because everybody was conserving energy, and the White House wanted to lead by example. But it was 2 in the morning, middle of the night. It would sort of be dark anyway, but because they had the lights extra dimmed for the energy crisis, it was even darker than you would expect at the White House. And then, that night, 2 in the morning, a warning system of some kind kicked in at the White House, and 2 a.m., these bright searchlights came on the White House grounds. And the reason those searchlights came on and the alert had been triggered is because somebody was landing a helicopter on the south lawn of the White House. And they were not supposed to be. This wasn't like Marine One. This wasn't an authorized arrival. It wasn't a press plane or something. This was a 20-year-old kid who had stolen a Huey helicopter from Fort Meade in Maryland. He apparently flew it around Anne Arundel County for a little while in Maryland, then decided to take off for Washington, D.C. He was only flying at about 50 feet off the ground. He had the lights off on the chopper, and he apparently zipped down the Baltimore-Washington Parkway, crossed over the Anacostia River at the South Capitol Street Bridge. You could sort of tell he was used to maneuvering by car instead of by air, since he was following appropriate roadways in his helicopter. But once he crossed the river, the speeding pilot flying very, very low in this military helicopter, he apparently looked up and decided that rather than continuing to follow local roadways, he would just fly right at the Washington Monument. So he zipped over to the Washington Monument, and then once he was there, he decided he would go to the White House. He would go hover above the White House in this helicopter, and then ultimately he would land that helicopter inside the security fence on the White House lawn. State police helicopters by then were chasing him. One state police helicopter landed apparently between the stolen chopper and the White House itself. Secret Service agents pulled out shotguns and started shooting at the Huey as it hovered over the White House. Eventually the helicopter came down. They pulled the pilot out of the chopper. They wrestled with him onto the ground, and eventually they took him to the hospital to have some buckshot taken out of him before they got him booked. Turns out the pilot was a 20-year-old Army private. He'd been very disappointed to have flunked out of flight training in the Army. Part of his motive for what he did, apparently, was that he wanted to show off what a good pilot he was. Robert Preston eventually served about a year in prison. He got kicked out of the Army. It is remarkable that the incident ended with him just having minor buckshot pellet injuries, but that is how that one ended. Later that same year, on Christmas Day, 1974, it happened again, although this time it happened without air power. And this time, it's even more amazing that the would-be White House intruder lived to tell the tale. Second one that year, Christmas Day, 1974, was a 25-year-old man named Marshall Fields, Jr. He had a Chevy Impala, which he used as a weapon, basically. He used it to ram the security gate at the White House. And he was successful in his effort to ram that gate. He ran right through it, rammed the car into the gate collapsed, he drove through it, and all the way up to the north portico of the White House. Secret Service surrounded him. He told the officers that he was the Messiah. And then he opened his coat to show that he was completely wired with explosives. He said it was explosives, it looked like explosives. It turned out to be road flares that he had stuck all over his chest and wired to his chest as if they were a bomb. But with all of that, he lived to tell the tale. They negotiated with him for hours there on the grounds of the White House, and he eventually gave himself up. And that, incidentally, is how we got the first crash-proof gate at the White House. They installed a new, bigger, stronger one after that incident on Christmas Day, 1974, proved that the old gate really was not up to the task, at least not up to a Chevy Impala. People trying to break into the White House to make some kind of statement, or more frequently to answer the voices in their heads. This has been happening for a lot of years now. And mostly the Secret Service finds a way to deal with these things in such a way that nobody gets hurt. Sometimes people do get hurt. In 1976, it was a 30-year-old Washington, D.C. cab driver named Chester Plummer. He had never been involved in any sort of White House intrusion before. He didn't appear to have any strong political or obsessive beliefs. He was not known to be suffering from acute mental illness, at least as far as we can tell from this distance. But He climbed the security fence at the White House, and he pulled out a 3-foot length of pipe, and he brandished that length of pipe as if it were a weapon, and a rookie officer with the Uniform Division of the Secret Service took aim from a distance of about 60 feet. He fired one bullet. That one bullet hit him in the chest and killed him. Chester Plummer of 1976. 2 years later, 1978, another guy put on a karate outfit, climbed the fence at the White House, and when the Secret Service ran over to him and challenged him and ordered him to stop, he pulled out a knife and he stabbed 2 of the officers. The officers were not killed, but they were hurt. His apparent motivation is that he wanted President Jimmy Carter to take "In God We Trust" off of U.S. currency. Funnily enough, that was a ploy that didn't work. In 1995, when Bill Clinton was president, President Clinton had just personally entered the White House moments before when a guy with an unloaded handgun jumped the fence and started running. That guy with the gun got to within 50 feet of the White House, which the president had just entered, before the Secret Service took him down by shooting him in the arm. In 2001, it happened again, except this time the guy's handgun was loaded, and he got a shot off before they took him down. His name was Robert Pickett. He was from Indiana. He was armed with a loaded handgun. He climbed the White House fence, landed on the South Lawn, fired his handgun once. Secret Service shot him in the leg and took him down. These sort of intrusions, they happen a lot. And they've happened basically to every president. I mean, when the guy landed the helicopter on the lawn, Gerald Ford was president. Serious incidents have happened in the Ford administration, the Carter administration, the Clinton administration, the George W. Bush administration. The Obama administration had a very alarming one of these and a very sad one of these less than a year ago. October last year, a 34-year-old dental hygienist with her 1-year-old child in the car with her. She crashed her car into an outer perimeter barrier at the White House. She had multiple confrontations with Secret Service officers and police, including running a Secret Service agent over as the officers tried to stop her. She just kept going. She was unarmed, but officers fired at her vehicle multiple times, and they ultimately shot and killed her. That was last October. Just 2 weeks ago, there was another one of these that made the news, in part because of the very striking imagery of the Secret Service with big guns and a very menacing attack dog reacting to this sadly mentally ill man who was holding a doll. He climbed over the fence holding a Pokemon doll. He was also wearing a Pokemon hat and wearing a Pokemon t-shirt. He apparently climbed the White House fence because he was having an issue with his health insurance, about which he wanted to talk with President Obama. That was just a couple of weeks ago. So people trying to get into the White House, people climbing the fence, people running at the doors of the White House, it happens a lot. It's been happening for more than 40 years. It's been happening as far back as you want to look at the history of the White House. And sometimes it's spectacular, like when, for example, they use a helicopter. And sometimes it's almost unbearably tragic, right? The woman shot in her car with her baby in the seat in the car behind her. Each one of these stories is unique and strange. There's always some sort of strange and sad story behind all of them. But one thing that is true about every single one of them is that in every single one of those cases, nobody ever made it inside the White House until now. On Friday night, the initial reports about 42-year-old Texan Omar Gonzalez getting arrested at the White House, they initially seemed like just another one of those White House fence jumper reports that we get every few months. And in some important ways, the story is sadly typical in the sense that Mr. Gonzalez's family says he was struggling with mental illness, with depression and paranoia, conditions that may have been aggravated or caused by post-traumatic stress from multiple combat tours he fought as a .50 caliber machine gunner in Iraq. Mental illness is the thread that runs through almost all White House intruder stories. It is sad, but it is true. And in that sense, the Omar Gonzalez arrest late on Friday fits this large, weird pattern. But we have since learned things from the initial arrest. Since that arrest, which seemed kind of, like a normal, the newest crazy thing in this long string of crazy things. Since that initial arrest, the things that we have learned about that incident subsequently, turns out, put this incident in a category all its own. Initial reports had said that Omar Gonzalez was unarmed. It turns out he was not unarmed. He had a knife in his pocket, a knife roughly like this, 3.5-inch folding knife with a serrated blade. In court today, prosecutors revealed that in his car, which was parked a couple of blocks away from the White House, he had also stashed more than 800 rounds of ammunition and a machete and 2 hatchets. They further revealed that he is out on bond from an earlier incident that happened July 19th in Wythe County, Virginia. In that incident, he reportedly led police on a high-speed chase along Interstate 81. When police finally were able to pull him over, what they found in his SUV was kind of a nightmare. He had 11 different guns in the car with him, 2 shotguns, at least one of which was sawed off, 4 rifles, including some with scopes, and 1 fitted with the 2 legs of a tripod, so you could set that one up with the bipod and the scope to use it essentially as a sniper would. He also had 5 handguns with him, 1 revolver and 4 other pistols. And folded into a Bible that he had with him in the car, he also had a map of Washington, D.C. And there were 2 things marked by hand on the map. A Masonic temple in Alexandria, Virginia, that's a bit of a local landmark, and the White House. So 11 weapons, including the sawed-off shotgun and the rifle set up for a sniper, and a map with the White House circled. And Virginia State Police arrested him. They charged him for the chase and for having the sawed-off shotgun. They took those guns into custody, and then they did 2 other things. They released him on bond, and then they informed the Secret Service about what had happened with this guy's arrest. They informed the Secret Service about this incredibly, ridiculously well-armed guy who they had just stopped with the illegal sawed-off shotgun and the sniper rifle and the other 9 guns and the map with the White House circled on it. Virginia State Police confirming now that they notified the Secret Service about Omar Gonzalez and the circumstances of that arrest after they picked him up in July. And if, in fact, that happened, if the Secret Service got that notification from the Virginia State Police, then what happened next at the White House is very hard to believe. Because the Virginia State Police say that they reported this guy to the Secret Service in July. In August, that same guy who the Secret Service had been notified about, he showed up at the White House. In August. In August, he turned up at the White House with a hatchet tucked into the waistband of his pants. And he was not, like, hiding his lead under a bushel. He was clearly showing the hatchet. He was milling around the White House fence. Secret Service saw him there. They stopped him. They questioned him about the hatchet. They interacted with him significantly, and for a long time, they interacted with him long enough that they got permission to search his vehicle, which was parked a few blocks away. But that apparently still did not set off enough alarm bells about this gentleman. And so over the next couple of weeks, he apparently went out and got his 800 rounds of ammunition, and not just the 1 hatchet, but 2 hatchets, and the machete, and the knife in his pocket, and then he came back to the White House again. And this time he vaulted over the White House fence. He ran all the way across the White House lawn. He got all the way to the north portico doors of the White House. He then opened the doors and went inside the building and was not apprehended until he was already inside the White House. The president and his family had just left the White House 4 minutes before this happened. For all sorts of reasons, people make crazy runs at the White House all the time. And there is almost always a very sad personal story behind most of them. That said, even with the sad personal stories, in terms of the way these things manifest, usually these attempted incursions at the White House are more wacky than they are scary, if only because there's a lot of them. But this one breaks the mold. How did he get inside? How did he get inside on his 2nd trip to the White House with a weapon after Virginia State Police had told the Secret Service about this well-armed man obsessed with the White House whom they had already arrested? In a sworn affidavit, one of the Secret Service officers who eventually apprehended Omar Gonzalez says he told the officers who were arresting him that he believed the atmosphere was collapsing. And he had to let President Obama know about that so President Obama could warn the people about the collapsing atmosphere. And that is a sad and upsetting thing for him and his family, that his, what maybe mental illness or his trauma got to the point that he believed that. He believed he was doing what he needed to be doing. That's upsetting enough that he was in that state for his family as a personal matter. But it is, on a whole different level, a very upsetting thing for our country that a man trying to warn President Obama about the collapsing atmosphere almost got a chance to do so. He made it inside. Joining us now is Carol Leonnig. She's a national reporter for the Washington Post. Carol Leonnig, thanks very much for being here. It's nice to have you here.
Thanks, Rachel.